We're on. We're on. We're live. We're late, but we're live. Apologies if you were waiting around. Nobody's waiting around. I know that. I'm not going to let my ego get the better of me. Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you're watching this in the future. Thank you for joining us for our latest SilviaFindings live stream presentation. Episode 85, I think it is. 85, yeah. Today I want to talk, actually before we get into what we're going to talk about, just a couple things. We just did an audit on somebody who was complaining that they didn't get their shipment, and they're local, Vancouver, we're Richmond, which is just on, by the airport. I mean, I can literally see Vancouver from the window here. It's like a 5-minute drive, maybe, because he's more downtown, this customer, so maybe like a 15-minute drive from here to there. And he ordered something. He was kind of in a hurry for it, so he thought, hey, I'll bump up, I'll pay the extra for the express shipping. So he paid for express shipping, Canada Post, and it took 4 days to get there. I don't know what else to say. I know this is the Bash Canada Post hour in SilviaFindings, but they just never cease to amaze me with how bad they are. Anyway, today we're going to talk about something. I'm not going to try to stretch this or anything because I'm already late starting. We're going to talk about something that's just near and dear to my heart because when we do shows, which shows are starting up again, so maybe we'll start doing some shows, or not maybe, we're definitely starting to do some shows. I think the first one's next month, end of March. Whatever, you can look on the website and find it. There's all that information's there in that calendar section. But when we do that, when we do shows, and if somebody buys a setting, if it's a simple, thing that doesn't require any power tools or glue or anything like that, and doesn't involve faceted opals, I won't set those anymore. My bandwidth for that kind of angst and stress is it's too small. I won't do it. I've reached a point in my life where it's like, what? Why am I going to give myself a heart attack angsting over this thing? Which faceted opals, they're so brittle, and emeralds. So emeralds and opals, I won't do them. We just because opals will cleave if you just push them in the wrong direction, at the wrong point, at the wrong time, a little bit of stress in the wrong way, just because of the way they form, right? There's almost like a grain. It's not really that. And, so gemologists are jumping out of their seats right now. Mark, what are you saying? No, I get it. It's not really grain. But it's, I don't know what to call it. I'm not a gemologist. But there's like unseen seams in the formation of the emeralds that if you put they'll just split in half. And I've had it happen to me, not very often, but more than once, twice. And after the second time, I said, look, I'm never doing opals again. It's just I can't take the stress. Because no matter how much you say, look, it could be a thing, it could be a problem, it could break a thing, there's already a crack in here. I don't want to think. No matter how much you, parse that with the customer in advance, when the stone breaks, there's no good resolution. I always feel guilty, and I always end up buying a replacement stone. So, so the customer is always happy, but I'm not. So I just won't do them anymore. But that has nothing to do with what we're talking about here. Only a little bit. It's just some added color to the story about so when we're at shows and we're setting all these stones, a lot of times And colored stone, I'm going to receive some ire from colored stone dealers now, and I don't care. You know what? It's about time somebody actually piped up and said something. You lapidarists, you know, stop doing this thing. And I know it's not the colored stone dealers, but they could put pressure on the people who are actually cutting the stones to cut it out. See what I did there? Cut it out. Sorry. And that has to do with pavilion depth, pavilion shape. So with a faceted stone, you know, you have, you know, the top called the table, the sides around the edges called the girdle, or called the crown, and then the outside perimeter, the sharp edge, usually is pretty sharp. Sometimes it's very, very thin, flat, but anyway, that's called the girdle. And then the big piece that goes underneath is called the pavilion, and the point down at the bottom, the cullet. Anyway, the pavilion, the angle of the top of the stone, or the girdle, and the pavilion makes an angle. And traditionally cut stones, this is a problem. And as much as I hate diamonds, I don't hate diamonds, but as much as I dislike the whole concept of diamonds because they're so artificially inflated in price, it's just staggering how much the price of diamonds is controlled by cartels. Oh, there you get my tinfoil hat, right? But it's true, whatever. I guess it's less so now, but you know, it used to be really bad. And you know, once it reached that thing, you know, who's going to upset the apple cart now at this point? If you're a small diamond mine, you're not going to start saying, well, this stone really should only be, you know, $3 a carat, you know, whatever. It's not going to happen. But my point is, you'll never see this with diamonds. As much as I dislike the whole concept of, you know, these colored stones that are very boring chemically, attracting so much money, they're always cut to a certain, you know, obviously because the brilliant cut kind of revolutionized the diamond industry, and so the angle from the pavilion to the girdle is 41 to 44 degrees, 45 degrees, you know, something like that. 40, let's call it average 43 degrees, and you know, a couple degrees here, a couple degrees there, doesn't matter. So that angle is what most jewelry designers who make mass-produced, if you're making a pendant or a ring for a specific stone, obviously you'll use whatever dimensions are on the stone and build the setting around that thing. And we do that when we do custom work, and I'm going to show you something very cool about this little stone scanner that we have, 3D scanner that we use when we do the custom work for stone. That will take crazy pavilion angles into consideration, but the mass-produced stuff, you know, the generic pendant settings that we have, and I'm going to show you like the most generic pendant settings that we have and the issues that happen with that. Those are designed with that 45-ish, 41 to 45-ish degree angle in mind. And let's look at this little piece of paper here. Let's see, let's turn this around. Okay, so this little telephone camera stand thing is, apologies. I'll have to figure out a way to get this thing. I forget what I was going to say now. Oh, okay. So here's a little, you know, ugly photograph of a stone, and this is a 45 degree angle, right? And you can see that if normally these basket settings, right, are made with the prongs. Get this a little bit closer. The prongs are at an angle, right? So the basket has a frame. The lower frame is smaller, the upper frame is a little bit bigger, but the upper frame is still smaller than the perimeter of the stone that's going to go inside. So that when you put the stone in, the stone will cover the whole, you know, thing. So you're just looking at the stone and the prongs on the side, right? Here's a smaller one that fits better, beautifully. No, oh, there we go, right? So kind of like in an ideal world, you don't want to see any of the silver sliver around the sides. Now, in a traditional setting that is designed for that 45-ish, 41 to 45 degree angle on the outside of that thing, if the stone has a really, really wide pavilion, right, at this point, the prongs are going to meet right, there at that point of the basket, because they get smaller and they get bigger. Where they should be, it should be all the way over here. And unless you create a bigger setting, it's not going to reach the outside of the thing, and you're going to end up having this stone sitting really high up in the setting to make it fit, right? So let me just show you something very cool. This first little stone that I'm going to show you, this little blue, I don't know what it is, little blue stone, right? I did a 3D scan of that stone, right? You see that? And let's just look at the underside of that stone. This, you can just click on, the beautiful thing about this 3D thing is you can click on this and it'll give you the angles, the girdle, or the angles off the table in this point. So 43.5, 43.01 degrees, 43, right? So it's all about, 43, that first big set of facets from the bottom, right? This has got a kind of an uneven girdle, but that doesn't matter. That's not a big deal. Right. So that's the stone. Now, I'm just going to put a stone in the scanner. And no, Norton, I don't want to restart my computer right now. Oh boy. So, that's already set for an oval. So what this scanner does is, just as we're going to watch this do its magic, it puts this stone on a little turntable. And it does, I counted the little clicks. You can see the little speck of dust moving. So it rotates the stone around and takes an image of the perimeter of the stone. It takes 260 of them. I don't know why it's not 360, but it's 260 of them, of those images. And then I guess it compares one with the next one, with the next, with the next, and creates a 3D map of the stone. Yeah, very cool concept. So this is almost done. Right, okay, so let's turn off that vacuum. Let's go back to the thing. So here's our stone, right? Pretty nice girdle, pretty nice thing. And you can see these facets here, the first facets, 58, 63, 66, right? So right away, this is way too fat for traditional settings, and yeah, they get smaller down at the bottom, but you've already, gone 2/3 of the way down the stone, right? With these great big facets that are, 50, 60 degrees, 66. 63. So when you have something like that, and let's just go back, let's get that stone out. Sorry about that. Is anybody getting seasick from the camera movement? No. So here's that stone. And again, it's a pretty clear stone. So my guess is they did that great big deep pavilion, or that big rounded pavilion. Yes, for the pattern of the facets on the front, but probably more importantly, either to enhance the color of the stone, to darken the color of the stone, because the darker, the thicker it is, obviously the darker it's going to be. And probably more insidious that I see a lot of times is that people are selling stones by carat weight, you know. So if it's a great big crazy deep pavilion, you're going to end up with a higher carat weight stone, right? So this stone, and I mean theoretically I should have, you know, two stones that are the same perimeter dimensions and use the same setting, but you know, they're same concept settings, right? They're basically the same-ish settings. You can see that. I wish I could have this angled down. Maybe I just hold on to the camera with one hand and work this with another hand. Anyway, so we have this one with this 41-ish degree pavilion, and you know, it just goes right in the I can do it with one hand because I'm a pro, and it sits right down, right? So they oh boy, I don't know if you can see that close, but the stone sits right down on the seat. The prongs are tall enough that you'll be able to make the notches a little bit deeper inside there, but pull those over onto the girdle. They'll come far enough into the stone that they'll set the stone beautifully, but they won't occlude the stone. They won't go too far in. On this one, which is the same dimensions as this setting, ostensibly, the perimeter dimensions are anyway, when I put this down in there, the big fat pavilion is causing the stone to sit too high up, and the prongs are too short. I don't know if you can see that. The prongs are too short that you won't be able to set those. You might be able to push those against the girdle a little bit, but not enough to secure those. And usually it's a lot worse. Usually the prongs are just sitting just down underneath that thing, but this one is pretty close. It's not as bad as some others I've seen. But I don't know, I wouldn't set that. I wouldn't try setting that. That's just not enough prong over onto the crown. I think traditionally, what I learned way back when, stone setting school, bench jewelry school, is the prongs should come onto the crown, maximum 50% up the crown, but not less than 10% of the width of the crown, right? The prongs should get, and this is not even like 5%. This is just not even 2%. This will just barely make it. I bet if I push this over onto the crown, the distance between the prong and the girdle now will take up all of the height of that prong, and you just won't be able to set that. So that's the problem with so when you're buying stones, you know, look at everything. Look at the stone, look at the thing, look at the dimensions. You know, yeah, and then if you're worried about will it, you know, set easily, have a look at the, you know, the perimeter dimensions or the pavilion dimensions. You just hold it sideways a little bit. If that, I'm trying to do this with one hand, you know, if that dimension is more than 45 degrees, you might have some difficulty. Now, theoretically, on something like this, I could probably file the inside edge of that into a little bit bevel to make the stone sit low enough down in there that it would work. You know, but if you're buying prefabricated settings like this that are pre-notched and everything, the idea is that you don't really want to do all that extra work. It's kind of supposedly already done for you. I don't know. But anyway, that's the problem, and that's it. So, you know, stones with smaller pavilions, right? And this is a deep enough colored stone already that they probably didn't need to do that. Didn't need to add extra depth in the pavilion to put more facets on there or make it darker. Oh, you know what? Another thing that people always ask me, you know, what's the best way to measure stones? And the answer is with a caliper. Don't hold this up with a ruler and then try to eyeball it. It's not going to work. Well, I mean, you can get close, but not super accurate. You want, I think, and this is not a super expensive caliper. I think this is like 25 or 35 bucks, something like that. Just turn this on. This one has millimeters or inches. I always use the millimeters, right? I don't know, but you can calibrate this just to make this go back down to 0. And you're just going to open that up and put this. Can I do this? 6.96. This is my reference stone for 7x9 settings. So was it 6.9? Is 2/200ths of a millimeter off, and this one is 8.93, so 7/100ths of a millimeter off the yeah, 8.96, 4/100ths of a millimeter off the calibrated. So this is as close as you're going to get to a calibrated stone for a hand faceted stone. Obviously, if you're buying lab grown stones, they're always going to be like super accurate. But another thing that I've noticed with stone sellers, especially, we're dealing with a lot of customers on eBay who will get stones somewhere and then they'll buy the settings from us to make them work, and it's like, hey, wait a minute, why is this not working? Because stone sellers, it seems more and more, and I don't know if this is a thing that's always been an issue or I just never noticed it before, they very rarely give you the accurate dimensions of the stone, right? Like if I was selling this stone, I would call this well, this is not really a good example because it's so close, but this is like a 7x9 stone. But if it's something like I don't know, 6.8 millimeters by it's like 6.8 millimeters by 9.3 millimeters, right? They'll probably just call that a 7x9 in the listing when they sell it. So you'll get, hey, great, let me get a 7x9 setting and how that work. Now that 0.3, the 6.8 obviously on a 7 millimeter setting dimension will be fine, perfect, beautiful. If every stone was 0.2 of a millimeter smaller than the dimension side, I would be so happy because I would never have issues with customers trying to return settings because the stones don't fit. And we have a pretty chill return policy, just so you know, because of this issue. But this extra 0.3 millimeters, I know that 0.3 millimeters, 0.3 millimeters, not 3 millimeters, 0.3 millimeters. I know that doesn't sound like much, but when you're talking about the tolerances between like a 7x9 millimeter setting, the difference between 0.3 millimeters and 0.0 millimeters is like the difference between, a really good snug fit and disaster. It just doesn't fit at all. So, yeah. People ask me, what's the one tool I should get if I'm going to do this as a hobby, buying stones and buying settings and putting them together and selling them? And to me, this should be your first purchase. Is a good caliper. Everybody has pliers and everybody, well, maybe not. You can get like a bezel pusher really cheap, but having a good caliper will definitely make your life easier. Is that it? I think that's it. I just gotta hold this like a selfie stick. So I guess between this and the other one, if you saw the other, my apologies, I got a little bit messed up trying to turn the camera around, but we got it back on track. I think probably for YouTube we'll splice these two little videos together. Yeah. So the end, I guess, theme, the main theme of this thing is to just be aware when you're buying stones that the dimensions, the perimeter dimensions are fine, and we can always work with pretty much whatever. But the pavilion is an often overlooked part of the stone, that when you're buying stones you really need to pay attention to the pavilion geometry, because if it's much bigger, if it's like you saw that one 55, 59, 60 degrees, if it's that high, you're going to have trouble finding a prefab setting for it to work in, or at least a prefab setting that you won't have to alter. You can always make room sometimes, or just get a bigger setting. But if you're matching your stones, that big stone is 13 by 18. So if you're matching a 13 by 18 stone with a 13 by 18 setting, it's not always going to work. Even though the perimeter dimensions are the same, it's not always going to fit. And sometimes it's a setting, guaranteed. Sometimes the setting is just not right for the stone. But I find that more often than not, it's the pavilion on the stone that's causing it to not fit. Yeah, so just be aware of that. And if you'd like to see some videos about how to alter settings to make them work, if they don't, I don't know, it seems silly to me if you're going to spend $12 on a little sterling setting, to have to spend an hour altering it, or whatever, 20 minutes or half an hour altering it. You may as well just make one, which is another video, which I'm not going to do. I'm not doing it, because that just takes away from why would you buy settings if you knew how to make them? Right? So be aware of your stones, pavilions. I say this all the time. Pavilion geometry is probably the biggest bugaboo with when it comes to buying prefab settings. And I've said that like 3 times now, so I'm just going to go. Thanks for joining us again this week. We'll be here next week with something else. I'll try to figure something else out to talk about. If you have any suggestions, any comments, concerns, please email me. Let me know through the chat here, the live chat on the website, or whatever. You can find us. We're available. Let me know, and I'll cover any of your jewelry making questions or concerns. It doesn't even have to necessarily be about our product, although obviously that's kind of the point of these whole live stream presentations. But anyway, I've droned on long enough. Thanks for joining us again today. We'll see you next week. So in the meantime, take care of yourself, take care of the planet, take care of your mental health, and we will see you next week. Alrighty, bye-bye. That didn't work.
What didn't work?
I'm trying to push the button.